The FNaF 2 movie has been out for a few weeks now, and the discussion around it is interesting to say the least. From the movie reviews to the subject of today's video, it's lore. What did this movie tell us about the story of the games? Could the movie solve some major aspects of the game's narrative, especially perhaps FNaF 4? Or at the very least, Charlotte Emily's role in FNaF 4? Well, that's what we're diving into in today's video. And as usual, welcome back to a new theory video. I recently finished my fall semester, so I have some free time to lock in on videos and actually produce content. I know, surprising, but I am happy to be back for now. But let's not litigate on that too much. Remember, if you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment down below for your thoughts and your opinions. I love hearing them. And if you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more updates. And of course, this video will contain spoilers for the FNaF 2 movie, so keep that in mind. Do not proceed if you don't want spoilers. With that warning out of the way, let's get right into the theory. The first thing I want to address in terms of what the movie revealed is something most of you older viewers may be expecting. That is the date of Charlie's death. Something I have held for several years now, I think, is that Charlie died in 1982 and not in 1983, like in the novel trilogy. As revealed in The Silver Eyes, she died Halloween of 1982, and this is revealed also in the Freddy files, which came out not long after the original novel. The main flaw this theory always had was that since The Silver Eyes, the date never appeared again, till now. The movie revealed at the very start of the film that Charlie died in 1982 at the original Freddy's location in the film timeline. This was probably a shock for a lot of fans, including myself, and it made me think, Scott didn't have to do that. Think of it, Scott could have easily changed a single digit in that scene, and it would have not contradicted what most people thought, 1983. Yet, he changed it to 1982, or maybe he didn't change it. And remember as well, according to Williams actor Matthew, the movies are meant to fill in the gaps of the lore.
Job in that movie is to deliver lore, right? So much of the game is like fans have for so long filled in the blanks. And our job is to fill in where we can and what Scott and Emma thinks appropriate. So for me, only thing I care about is that we're doing something that the fans want, that they'll be excited to see.
If that is true, then this date is very intentionally used by Scott Cawthon, and he wants us to derive something from its usage in the movie. And what else could that be besides Charlie dying in 1982 in the games? Which, by the way, isn't all that out there if you've seen my past content. 1982 appeared within the source code of FNaF 4 teasers, and in FNaF 4, you got various mentions and allusions to kids having already died or been murdered, with a heavy emphasis and tie to the plush bear of FNaF 4. From the rumors of missing kids, the various ties plush bear has to the puppet, which, by the way, I'll get into more later, and the fact that this was a prequel to the first 3 games, whereas the murdered kids, the MCI and the puppet, were the main central plot point. So it would make sense in a game that was literally marketed as the final chapter to that original story that Charlie may have been dead for a year by this point in 1983, like the novel trilogy, Halloween of 1982. Now, that would be all fine and dandy, except for one tiny little thing. This evil book. On screen, you can see the page that pretty clearly is about Charlie, and it very heavily implies that Charlie died at a Freddy's location in the games and not Fredbear's like most of us thought. So now, we're left with a contradiction. Old and new media seems to both imply she dies in 1982, but also at a Freddy's location, which then directly contradicts when we know Freddy's opened in the games, that being in 1983 according to the Fast coin. The big question then becomes, how do we reconcile this? Well, honestly, I don't really have a flawless idea, but I can share some thoughts I've thought about myself and what I've heard from other members in the community. First off, it's still possible Charlie did die at Fredbear's. It's simply just less likely now. It's very feasible that the security wristbands being talked about on the page would have also been at Fredbear's, which has been referred to as a Freddy's location before in the franchise, like in the Ultimate Guide, or Fredbear and Freddy originally being the exact same character. Even when you call Fredbear's number into the pit, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria picks up the phone directly, indicating that Fredbear's either was or became a Freddy's location, which also as well, that phone call mentions the Bite of 83, which makes it even more weird. Alternatively, maybe it's similar to the FNaF movies. There was a Freddy's location before 1983, but it closed in 1982, and the franchise location opened in 1983 with many locations nationwide. Hence why the coin says 1983, since that's the true start of the Freddy's franchise location. Maybe that place, as said earlier, is also the original Fredbear's location. It may also fit with Secret of the Mimic, as it says Freddy's is coming soon. And I'm gonna be frank with you, 4 years is not soon. So maybe an early location was or did open. This could explain the timeline discrepancy. But anyway, it appears that Scott is trying to tell us that Charlie died in 1982, and I don't think we should discard that from the movie. Why would Scott put that in the film if it wasn't meant to tell us something? It could have very easily been 1983, and no one would have questioned it. You may be wondering though, how does that tie to solving FNaF 4? It's about Charlie's death date. How does that relate to that game's story? Well, you have to wait. I'll be returning to that later in the video. For now, let's dive into an old psychic little friend and how the FNaF 2 movie may be giving us some really important answers. Hey guys, before I dive into this section of the video, I do want to apologize if I was sounding a bit boring or monotone. I was having a breathing issue for about a week or so. It wasn't that important, but it was affecting me, so that's why I sounded that way, but I do feel better now. So with that clarification out of the way, you may be confused by the title of this segment. The Fredbear plush doesn't appear at all in the films, you may say. And you're right, he doesn't. But I do think there is a, trigger warning, parallel in the movies. Now, what is that parallel, you may ask? Well, it's the good old Faztalker. What exactly is the point of the Faztalker in the sequel? Well, it's effectively a means for the puppet to communicate with Abby, leading her on what to do. Charlotte in the film possesses the Faztalker to befriend Abby, taking her to the location to free her and accomplish what she wants. Charlie later bonds with Abby directly in the film, possessing her and altering her body and appearance, deforming her into an Abby puppet hybrid, or an Abby Annette if you knew the leaks for the movie beforehand. We need to first consider what this movie tells us about Charlie. In the film, it confirms that Charlie has a great extent with her abilities compared to any other spirit, with the maybe exception of Golden Freddy. She is not limited to the puppet body, even when she's trapped in the pizzeria. She can also possess faraway objects like the Faztalker and speak to others, and when able, possess anyone of her liking, capable of willingly altering the person's appearance. This alone validates many of my own theories about Charlie, and demonstrates she is capable of nearly doing anything she wants, even if it's not near her. Charlie possesses the toy of Mike's younger sibling, Abby, to guide and talk to her, which itself is very similar to Plush Bear in FNaF 4. The Plush Bear is Mike's younger brother's toy, which a spirit possesses and uses to guide and talk to the bite victim, often being blunt or even harsh in their language. And before you comment it down below, no, I don't think William talks for the Fredbear plush at all. I have a couple of videos I'll show on screen while I go over that, but for the sake of this video, I think it's very clearly a spirit, and I'm going to take that in mind for the rest of this video. So just keep that in mind. If you want to know why I think that, you can watch the videos on screen. Moving on, this would be consistent with my argument from the first movie. Abby in the first film has a unique connection to the MCI kids. She refers to them in the same language used in FNaF 4 for the plushies, aka Bite Victim's friends. In the film, only Abby can see him, while they roam Mike's house and even commune with Abby in her dreams in the novelization, before the events of the movie. This itself was already very similar to FNaF 4, and FNaF 2 solidifies this parallel. If this is true, it seems to tell us that Charlie is, well, the plush bear, and is communing with the bite victim as she did to Abby. However, this does bring up another question. In the film, Vanessa explains that Charlie needs to bond with a living person, and we see how she can do this bond. She simply possesses them, and we see their shirts become striped and they have tear tracks. Oh no. Okay, obviously, she can't be doing the same thing to bite victim in the games. He clearly doesn't have that same warped face, arms, and legs. But FNaF 4 does make an intense effort to tie the bite victim to the puppet through various parallels and similarities. So, who's to say the puppet doesn't do a similar but different bond in the games? In the movie, it was an aggressive, possessive bond she uses to, well, puppet her victims, pun intended. But if in the games, she cares for the bite victim, is it not possible she bonded with him, but didn't directly take control like in the film version? It would explain why the plush bear teleports and is only visible to the bite victim, and why he appears in these flowers and impossible places. It also explains why she can also speak in his mind throughout the game. And while the movie executes it in a very different way, it is meant to tell us the mechanism on how the puppet works in the game's timeline. I think this is very, very likely in my personal opinion, but let's move on to one more, shorter topic. The box, oh that box, what is in it, what does it mean, we'll never know, it's Scott Coffin. As expected though, I do recommend you check out my original video on FNaF 4's Nightmares, where I go over exactly what I believe is in the box, but I will give you a quick recap of my original video about the topic, so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. In FNaF 4's trailer, we get this text, "What have you brought home?" being paired with the gameplay. This implied that something we brought home is causing the nightmares in FNaF 4, that being the player Michael. And considering we do have Plushtrap, who is a Springtrap variant, and the logbook refers to the dreams as being recent, it seems plausible that FNaF 4 is shortly after FNaF 3's gameplay. And what is the only event that happened right after FNaF 3 that Mike could have been present for? The auction. And what did he buy at the auction? Well, in my other video, I argued that the items he bought from the auction and placed in the box are the FNaF 4 plushies, which represent each murdered child of the MCI. These toys represent the memories of the past, trying to be forgotten by the player, Michael, being locked and shut away until it's opened. This is why the box is the very last thing you see in FNaF 4. Michael bought these items from the auction to remember the past, and the past came to haunt him, punish him, giving him these nightmares. So he locked them away again, as some things are better left forgotten. And as a bonus there, it is possible that these plushies are the ones that Bite Victim had in the minigames. The only problem with it is that Foxy isn't broken like we see him, but if we do account that what we're seeing is a dream or hallucination, that just could be the result of that, so it actually could just be the actual plush, but doesn't matter, the point still stands. But something you're definitely wondering right now is, how does the movie relate to anything I just talked about? I believe the movie has nearly proven my conclusion here. Within the film, Vanessa opens a cabinet and takes a group of items out of the box, one of them being Garrett's plane. This alone implies these are memories or representations of memories of items that represent Afton's, again, memory of killing the children. What the movie does here is, seemingly at least, validate my thoughts. The items in the box within Afton's house represent each victim, their memory, locked away until it's opened by Vanessa. And what happens when she opens the box? She places them on counters to remember the past and then has a violent dream. Doesn't that sound almost the exact same to my theory here? Michael buys a bunch of auction items to remember the past, places them in his house, and then it causes a week-long's worth of violent dreams. This is very relevant to the story, since the box then represents the memories of the past, everything that came before, the cycle of trying to lock it away before it is inevitably reopened. Considering as well that in the past 2 sections, it shows that the movie is clearly trying to tell us something about FNaF 4 or things adjacent to it, it makes this idea a lot more likely that it could be trying to tell us something about the box. And since this theory is supported by the original games and now the movie, it makes me all the more confident that something like I'm talking about has to be the answer. And overall, it's really just as simple as that. It's time though to finally dive into what is the true story of FNaF 4 and Charlie after the FNaF 2 movie and all the lore it has revealed. Let's take into account everything we've talked about so far on what the new movie has given us. How do I think this changes the story of FNaF 4 or just FNaF in general? Well, for me, it's honestly not that much, as it's largely, obviously with some bias, fits with what I've already believed for a good while now, for the most part, but it does elaborate and give a better explanation on what exactly is going on in the games. In 1982, a whole year before the buy of 83, a Freddy's brand location was operating. Whether or not this was an actual Freddy's location with Freddy Fazbear or the toys, or a Fredbear's being considered part of the Freddy's franchise, Charlie was locked out by several bullies and was murdered by William Afton, later possessing the puppet within said Freddy's establishment. Charlie, however, as we know, doesn't go down that easily. She possesses the Fredbear plush, a toy close to the bite victim, and uses it to be his friend, guiding him and protecting him, even as the other children went missing in the summer of 1983. She bonds to him, being directly a part of him and his mind. This allowed her to protect the bite victim while he was alive, being his deep friend, trying to keep him away from the Freddy's or Fredbear's location, trying to keep him safe above all else. And this worked for a time, before devious Daniel destroys everything in the buy of 83, resulting in bite victim's death, whom she later gives life to as Golden Freddy. The story picks up down the road, decades later, during FNaF 4's nightmares. Whether or not you believe it's merely dreams or hallucinations caused by a spirit, Mike had gathered the memorabilia of the past, and potentially the actual plushies his brother adored, and he locked them away in a box, trying to forget him and all the victims of his father's murders. But he couldn't so easily. The memories followed him home, and he opened them and they were unleashed. The nightmares came upon him as Michael fights for his life in the shoes of his brother in weeks-long nightmares that seem to never end. What's truly going on with these nightmares, whether or not Mike is experiencing guilt or someone is imposing this on him, is up again for you to decide. And that's about it for the theory. Yeah, it's not the most detailed or streamlined theory I've made so far, but it's more what I think the movie tells us about Charlotte in FNaF 4, and why I think it supports some of the things I have been saying about those games. I'm pretty confident in the conclusions I've reached here, but enough about me. What did you think of the theory? Did you agree, or did you have a different interpretation of these details? Be sure to tell me down below in the comments. I'll be sure to reply and at least give you a heart. I do love seeing y'all's thoughts in the lore and seeing long comments. I actually do like reading, unlike a lot of FNaF fans. Beyond that, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like down below and subscribe for more content. And if you want updates, remember to hit that notification bell. I hope you enjoyed 2025. I thought it was a great year for me personally. I'm glad for all the support y'all have given me. I got stuff coming up soon, but see you next time.